We are live from Auckland Park in Johannesburg. This is your program. It is where we interact with you on the relevant stories that made headlines during the week. After all, it's topical. Good evening to you, South Africa, and those watching around the world. My name is Blain Herman, and this is It's Topical. It's so good to be with you tonight on a program where you have your say on the burning issues of the week. We'll also bring in the experts, we'll ask them the questions, and you gain facts, opinion, perspective, context. It is all important on this show. And as per usual, our central voice of the show is here, our digital audience. Hello, digital audience. Thank you very much indeed for joining us on It's Topical. It's such a great pleasure to have you. We'll be engaging with them in a short while. They're joining us from all corners of the country via Zoom with pertinent and important views on the issues of the day. What are the issues of the day? Well, this is to our question of the week. As you know, KwaZulu-Natal was declared a disaster area by the national government this weekend. According to the KZN Premier Sihle Zikalala, this is perhaps one of the biggest disasters in living memory of the province. He said, and get this, the level of devastation of human life, of infrastructure, of service delivery networks is in that province is unprecedented. But there's a silver lining in these dark clouds. No doubt it is a time of pain. It is a time of uncertainty, but it is also a time of hope, a time of compassion, a time of humanity, Ubuntu. And you can see it clearly as the days go on, when people come together to rebuild and to comfort those who have lost. So we're asking you this question of the week. In light of the devastating floods in KwaZulu-Natal, what can South Africa do better to prepare for these natural disasters? Please send us your thoughts at It's Topical. Walk with me while we prepare for the roundup. Look, context is important here. The Premier, who is going to be on the program later tonight, KZN Premier, that is Sihle Zikalala, he was saying that over 40,000 people have been affected. We're talking about over 400 people that have died, schools that have damaged, over 563 people are now declared missing, at least 63. So this is the context of what we're dealing with. It is becoming clearer every day as the days go on. So we're going to bring in the better minds onto the program. We're going to get you some answers. Please have your say with regards to the burning issue of the week. Interact with us on all our social media platforms, and later we'll take your call 011-714-5958. We'll put that number up in a short while. 011-714-5958. Please give us a call. I'd like to engage with you. Also, WhatsApp 078-459-1819. And we will take your calls during the course of the show. We'll also read your tweets. It is a packed program. We've got lots to talk about. Now, time for your roundup. All right, let's take a look at some of the topical stories this week. And after 2 years of lockdown and many Christians not able to commemorate the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, 2022 marked the first year after President Ramaphosa lifted the National Disaster Act. Many South Africans from all walks of life came out in numbers to observe this holy day in different denominations. But have a look at this. There's been some mixed reaction.
A price was paid, a very expensive price was paid for us. So that is why a day like this, a weekend like this, we don't take it for granted.
Well, the Easter period has no relevance to the African continent. I think generally to the Southern Hemisphere, it has no relevance.
As much as we are not going to oppress on anyone's belief, we are all praising God, and God is for all of us.
Look, another story that is very topical, obviously, this past week. The main story of the day is the devastating floods that have hit KwaZulu-Natal province and some other parts of the country. The floods that hit KwaZulu-Natal saw hundreds of people losing their lives. Meanwhile, in Port St. John's in the Eastern Cape, a six-year-old boy died due to floods that hit the area. Let's take a look at this.
I have lost 10 family members. It's my sister and their 4 children and their 5 grandchildren. We have so far recovered the bodies of my sister and 3 grandchildren. We searched in the river and we found 4 bodies of the victims. We are still distraught by what we witnessed. Even though we are not family members of the flood victims, we also need counseling.
Did you hear the first person that was interviewed? He lost 10 family members in one go. 10 family members. They say you have to go through a test to get to your best. How do you comprehend that, though? How do you process that form of hurt? SABC news reporters in KwaZulu-Natal, they were very busy this week gathering your thoughts on the devastating floods in the province. So on a Word on the Street feature this week, we hear how you coped with the heavy rains. Take a look.
Isimoshe kakhulu ngoba ezikoleni asikwazanga ukuya sijikisiwe kwathiwa akumele size namhlanje ngoba iweather ikanjena manje nje kwa ugesi awukho amanzi nawo asambele kubi nje kuyabheda.
You see, there was a landslide here. We can't move around. We can't get down. We can't get to the banks. We can't get to the shops. It's the rain, bro. It's the rain.
It affected kakhulu because ngoba uhluphetha sinawo ngenxa yalesi simo lesamanje. Even alibesala khona futhi asazi ukuthi siphethe kangakanani ngalezi zinto esitala kuzona yabona. So isimo sibheda kakhulu.
Sikhahlameze kakhulu imvula idilize zonke izinto. Yonile kakhulu ngiphuma emsebenzini manje ngifike ngajika ngoba indlela yokuhamba azikho. Sivalekile.
I lost everything, even my tools. Another business, it fall everything down. I lost everything. Whatever can think, I lost.
But requesting to have a home of our own. Right now it's going to fall. They're not even helping. This one of us is some blankets. I was a bit of a camuga by La Lela. Uzomelu kusiye lethine ikoleni. La khona masiye ikoleni kusho ukuthi siyogqekeza siyongena ngenkani because akekho sinakile.
These are real stories. These are your stories that will hopefully streamline the strategy. How, you ask? We're going to bring in the KwaZulu-Natal Premier during the course of today's program. We're going to get some answers for you. Also, after the break, we're going to go for a quick break. After the break, we're going to have onto the program a mind that is clearly understands the issue of climate and environmental activists of note. Next. Welcome back. You're watching It's Topical. It's a program that puts you, our viewers, at the center of the discussions. Please have your say with regard to the burning issues of the week. Interact with us on our social media platforms. Later on, we'll be taking your call, so please stay tuned throughout the program. We want to hear from you. We're asking you, in light of the devastating floods in KwaZulu-Natal, what can South Africa do to better prepare for natural disasters at this time? People are being urged to monitor rising water levels, especially in low-lying areas, exercise caution when driving through flooded areas, as well as avoid low-lying bridges, water streams, rivers, etc. So I've prepared some slides. I want to show you a few slides that we've been talking about. It's a topical issue. It's on El Nino and La Nina. Apparently it means, in Spanish, if I'm not mistaken, little boy, little girl. I'm not sure why. That's a topic for another show. Now, these are the two opposing climates patterns over the Pacific Ocean that affect weather patterns around the world. Our research department tells us that La Nina is in force right now, which I guess partly explains the devastating floods that have ravaged KwaZulu-Natal. Episodes of El Nino and La Nina typically last 9 to 12 months, but can sometimes last for 4 years. So have a look at this. When we're talking about El Nino and La Nina, we talk about weak trade winds here, warmer oceans, occurs every 3 to 7 years, as well as dry conditions, as opposed to La Nina, which is strong trade winds, cooler ocean temperatures, frequency is unknown, and wetter conditions. So what does this mean to you and I? La Nina is not the only reason, I understand, that these floods have happened, but The La Nina phenomenon makes it more likely if other factors fall in line as well. Essentially, La Nina affects climate rather than weather, and what's devastated KwaZulu-Natal has been a weather event. Unusual highs and lows may have been seen, very high rainfall anyway, even if La Nina wasn't even present. So, some say that climate change is worsening, and the fear is that if the world fails to do what is necessary, these kind of extreme weather events is going to be more common. Let's bring in a better mind now and discuss these issues with him. Kumi Naidu is a world-renowned environmental activist, climate activist. He joins us now live. Mr. Naidu, it's a great pleasure having you on the program to give us perspective. Let me just read out that you are also Global Ambassador at Africans Rising for Justice, Peace and Dignity. Welcome to It's Topical.
Thank you. Good to be with you at this terribly sad time.
It is indeed sad, but I guess we need to talk about this in order to get to a better place. When people talk about climate change, Mr. Naidu, they yawn. They saying climate change. They blame everything on climate change. What links can we draw in terms of what's happening in KwaZulu-Natal and the climate issue?
Well, firstly, we must remind ourselves that climate scientists have been saying for decades now that one of the ways in which climate will impact in Southern Africa will be wild fluctuations between drought and flooding. So we can see that this is happening. And however, in trying to diagnose what's happening in KZN right now, there will be those who will say, there have been isolated storms in the past that we've had and so on, so why don't we put it in that context? The reason for that is the facts on the ground. There is no question there's an increase in extreme weather events. The incidents are getting more ferocious, more in frequency and so on. And we are seeing weather events like when we saw Cyclone Itai. It's not as what's happened in KZN is a total shock to us. And I think what's really a problem here is that to add to that has been the systemic corruption and failure to deliver by provincial and city authorities. And you've seen a systematic lack of investment in infrastructure. This combination of climate impacts, infrastructure problems, as well as an increased population over the last 20 years, all of these three things have combined to give us the disaster we have in Durban.
Rapid urbanization. The question is the infrastructure expanding as well? We're going to bring in the KwaZulu-Natal Premier in a short while, but I wanted you to touch on the issue of the warning signs. People sitting back home thinking they only probably will react when you have such catastrophes like what we're seeing in KwaZulu-Natal. But what should people be paying attention to on a day-to-day basis that will say, hey, 1 + 1 is going to equal to that disaster that you saw in KwaZulu-Natal?
Well, basically, not only should our people be paying attention, bottom line is our politicians should be paying attention. There is a campaign of civil society in South Africa. I don't speak for them, but I'm a supporter. The Climate Charter campaign. And they've, just as these events happen, they've taken President Ramaphosa and members of the cabinet to court to say that they have systemically and systematically failed to listen to appeals for action. For example, there is a whole plan put out by South African civil society in the Climate Change Charter, and they've been begging for a conversation with Parliament and government. It's gone almost 2 years now. Government, in its arrogance, has not seen it fit to engage with society. And right now, if we are looking at who is going to solve the problem in Durban, in KZN, who's going to help our people, it is civil society organizations that are in the forefront, from Gift of the Givers to a range of grassroots organizations. Government must realize that it needs to engage with civil society in a respectful, meaningful relationship. And I think that this court action that has just been brought, saying that the failure systemically to deny all these signs and so on is important. For us as citizens, we need to be putting pressure on government to do more, but we need to also be looking at how do we think about resilience in our communities about flood systems, think about even urban food generation, because these are the things that we need to be thinking about to prepare for a climate resilient future.
Disaster management activities or systems have been kicking in KwaZulu-Natal. What do you make of government's response thus far?
Firstly, I think, when we ask this question, I think firstly we must start by honoring the thousands of decent, good people that work in our provincial government, that work in our city council, that are trying the best to do, in a very difficult situation. I want to acknowledge that there are lots of good people trying really hard. But bottom line is, when we assess, when we have more than 500 people who have died, right? When we have so many homes that have been destroyed, that when we have so many people without water for so long, then no government can hold up its face and say we are doing well. The city of Durban, eThekwini municipality, and the provincial government must start with humility here, as should the national government, to say we are not doing as well as we can do. And if we're going to help our people in the next days to get their lives together, then we need to engage with civil society, get citizens to be involved. And I want to honor the thousands and thousands of people that have reached out to help people in need, because that's the kind of solidarity we need, which is sometimes sadly lacking from our government.
I'm going to bring in government. KwaZulu-Natal government shortly. Mr. Naidu, get some their reaction to some of the points that you put in. We appreciate your time. We need your better mind on these issues as well, to give us perspective, to give us context. Kumi Naidu, be well, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Kumi Naidu there is world-renowned climate activist with regards to, he's also a global ambassador at Africans Rising for Justice, Peace and Dignity, giving us his take. We're going to bring in the Premier, Mr. Sihle Zikalala, in a short while. Put some questions to him, what Mr. Naidu has raised as well. But we've been asking you with regards to our question of the day, in light of what's happening in KwaZulu-Natal, what can South Africa do better in order to prepare for these natural disasters? At its topical, SABC 078-459-1819 is the WhatsApp line, and you can give us a call, please. Look at that number there, all those different extensions. I want to hear you on this program, 011-714-5958. You've sent us your WhatsApp videos and messages. Let's listen.
Tony Govender have been called and emailed previously when it was first reported during the previous inclement weather. However, nothing was done, and the homeowners, my mom and them, were told that the municipality doesn't have a budget. This last week, the delays have cost my family their home, and no work has been carried out to date. It's twofold. Municipalities could have done a lot more to sort out infrastructures to avoid such devastation like what we've seen during the flood. Take nothing away, the flood has caused massive devastation, but I'm sure that if it had been done differently, like what happened in the past.
The floods have led to loss of human life, destruction of social and economic infrastructure. We plead to the government, please, they must act quickly. They must provide water, food, blankets, everything they want, those people. They need help now. Please, to our government.
I think what is currently happening in KZN, it's a wake-up call to our government to have an emergency fund scheme disaster. People are supposed not to build their houses near floodplains or river banks, but our people are just stubborn. And the other thing, in most towns in South Africa, drainage system is very, very poor.
In issues, the last guest there was saying that people are building in the wrong areas. But the pushback, and people will tell you, is that where else can we build? It's a conversation that we need to have. Let's bring in our digital audience. They are people from all over South Africa, sourced based on their comments that they have left on social media regarding the hot topic of the night. We are asking you, how can South Africa better prepare for natural disasters? Digital audience, thank you very much indeed once again for joining us. Let's talk to Tobile first up from Vosloorus. Tobile, thank you very much indeed for coming on. What's your take with regards to how can we better prepare?
Good evening. Thank you for having me. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. Go ahead, Tobile. How can we better prepare as a country?
As a country, I think there are ways whereby our government has been totally oblivious to the whole situation. I mean, it's only struggling with a smaller portion of the country. Imagine if it was the entire KZN. Now, we do need to mobilize professionals, town planners, people who can actually study the climate change as in other countries. Currently in Italy, they are checking that every year the country is sinking by 2 inches. But now our government is not doing anything, and they are aware of the changes. They are aware of the congestion in those areas. However, nothing is being done. They just totally quiet, and our people are building homes in desperation. They are quickly wanting to own land, but nothing is being done in that regard. I mean, places like our cities are also congested, and nothing is being done about that. Those people they've rushed to build their homes because they are growing. No one wants to live in their homes until they are 60. Everyone wants to leave a legacy for their children.
You mentioned the issue of decaying infrastructure. I was in Venice in Italy 2 years ago. I saw firsthand in terms of that infrastructure and the real concern from the people of Italy. What lessons can we learn here in South Africa? Miso, you are in the thick of things in Durban. What's been your experience?
Okay, thank you very much. The craziest part of all of this, what's currently going on in KZN, is the fact that it's quite obvious that our government is never prepared for such disasters. Whether it's fire or whether it is water, we do not have a disaster management system or a proper plan that our country currently has. Because when you look at the response, as much as they have responded days after, it wasn't a swift response. I can attest to you that today, because for the past couple of days we've been driving around trying to assist people. People are still on the roads. People are still without food. People are still without water. People are still without shelter. People have lost almost everything. I promise you, the pain that you basically feel when you drive around Durban and looking at all these things that are currently happening in our city is very heartbreaking, because as much as our government is going to say that they are responding or they are making ways to help the people that are still on the streets, but they haven't reached the capacity of helping everyone. I believe as a country, we should basically have a proper plan which will work for every other disaster that will fall into place, because this is not the first time this has happened in our country. This is not going to be the last time that it happens. It is going to be a continuous thing because of the climate change.
I want to get you some answers. And digital audience, I'm bringing in now the Premier of KwaZulu-Natal. I hope you can hear his answers as well. Please jump in if you want to throw in some questions as well, because this is an issue that hits at the heart of society. Premier Sihle Zikalala, appreciate your time, sir. I know it's a tough time for the people of KwaZulu-Natal, but as Miso was saying, and it's a sentiment that is being echoed, people are saying that government is not responding fast enough. Your response, sir?
No, thanks for including us in your program, and greetings to all viewers. Look, it's something different to analyze from not being on the ground and to interview people and conclude on that. From day one, even before the floods started, as the government, we were issuing alert, trying to warn people to be in safe areas. For many years, we've been running a campaign to move people from the bank of the rivers, to move people from wetlands, and we often get resistance. Some of the affected areas are not township per se, but you will find that there are informal settlement and there are semi-rural areas. But Then you engage with people and they will tell you that no, they can't move from those areas. Now,
and
it's
the pushback is always the pushback is always that there's no other space to go. That's a real concern as well, and it talks to other issues.
Yes, and then it's unfair then to say government is not acting because we've been on the ground on that campaign. But secondly, leading to the date of these heavy rains, we were all out warning people about the inclement weather and even identifying areas which could have been affected. Yeah. So we warned people. Then when this happened, the next day we were there with the people. It happened at night. The following day, just the following day, we were there. It happened at night. In the morning, we regrouped, we visited, we went to all areas. And when we went there, most of the areas, the disaster management had been there trying to work with the people.
Right.
KwaZulu-Natal have disaster management centers in all districts. And those disaster management centers were built by the provincial government through the Department of Court. We tried our best to ensure that we protect the lives of the people. Currently, the task at hand is to ensure that we mitigate the challenges we have, which include ensuring that people have shelter, they get food, they get clothes, and all of that. And we're working hard to ensure that all affected people get those services.
Premier, this program is all about an engagement with the constituency, the people on the ground as well. I want to bring in our digital audience as well. They've been listening to you attentively. Bella Zondi from Pietermaritzburg, I saw you shaking your head. Any question for the Premier in terms of the situation where you are in Pietermaritzburg?
Thank you very much, Blaine. And to start with, I'd like to say ukuthi siyazwelana kakhulu nabo bonke abantu abathintekile ngenxa yekhukhula. I am from Pietermaritzburg, from Umgungundlovu district municipality, and we have areas also that were adversely affected by the floods. What I would like to say, as Umiso had actually mentioned before, is that we seem to have a reoccurring problem in South Africa where we only start with dealing with issues once we are hit. We do not have any systems in place that are proactive in dealing with issues beforehand. And we continuously find ourselves in the same cycle of trying to salvage a disaster when it happens. Yes, I hear the Premier saying that there are systems in place. We've got disaster management centers all around the provinces. Yes, we do have all of those systems in place, but maybe we also need to look at, are they working? Are there any other means that we need to look at in trying to sort or in trying to be proactive with such issues, such as the floods that we are currently experiencing here in KwaZulu-Natal. Thank you.
I'm going to get the response from the Premier in a short while. Let's just bring in Akash very quickly. Akash Ramden, are you where you are joining us from, and what's the situation on the ground where you are?
Pardon me, Blaine, I just unmuted the mic. Good evening, everybody, and thank you for this opportunity. I'm joining you guys from Durban's beachfront. I live on North Beach. And just hearing from my contemporaries about this evening and looking at the visuals brings back the utter devastation that the province is going through. And my heart goes out to so many of them. I was obviously at that night monitoring the situation on Durban's beachfront, and it was quite unpleasant. And I think what exacerbated the fear for everybody was the sudden notification that Eskom will be doing load shedding. I know we got the notification about 45 minutes before it was switched off here on the beachfront. And if it was one thing to deal with excessive rainfall, having to deal with excessive rainfall while there's no electricity is quite a scary experience. Right. And I have 2 points, and just a question for the Honourable Premier that I would like to know is, what is the provincial government doing to ensure that there's greater transparency in terms of showing us that that local government and the eThekwini municipality is working together with our environmentalists and our scientists in creating a plan to ensure disasters of this extent not happen. Because a recent report released earlier this January by Professor Andrew Green, who's the head of marine biology studies at UKZN, he indicated that there's evidence that in the near future, Durban is going to be susceptible to tropical cyclones. As you know, previously tropical cyclones would only affect Madagascar and our neighbors in Mozambique. However, with climate change and global warming, we find that we're going to actually start experiencing that.
No, I'm just saying, Akash, that it was an issue that was raised as well a short while from Kumi Naidu. We've got the gist of your question. Leon, we'll come back to you in a short while. Dr. Nkomalo as well, stand by. Premier, let's just deal with Bella's concern with regards to response as well and acting too late. Often when you have a disaster like this or you hear about a warning, the government puts out a message saying that disaster management teams are on high alert. What does it mean when you're on high alert? Is there any preventative measures that, takes place during this high alertness?
Well, firstly, let me say, as Ms. Zondi was speaking, she says she claims to be from Mkungulu. From where I am, I know affected areas that around Mkungulu, the most affected areas, it's Itindale and Sobantu. Because we are practical, we are on the ground. Once we issue the alert and say, let us, with the weather, it's the disaster level, it's on high alert, we activate all our systems. We send messages to local leaders. We try to reach to war rooms in wards, to activate war rooms in each and every ward, to alert people to evacuate dangerous areas. So we do have systems. We may not have systems that are so complex or high level. We need to continuously build systems to reach a high level, but our systems are working. Secondly, one of the things in South Africa that we need to do, focus on, is community participation, because that will lead to effective community education, where we will understand what do we mean when we say there is a wetland, don't build near the rivers. Then we are able there to have a common approach on issues. So we will need to spearhead community education.
Does that talk to the issue of what Kumi Naidu was raising, Mr. Premier, in terms of government's interaction with civil society in order to better educate the people on the ground? Is that not happening?
It is happening, and I wanted to include the question by Akash on that one. In KwaZulu-Natal, we have launched what we call the climate change, the Provincial Council on Climate Change. I am the chair of that climate change. It includes government, civil society, including universities. So various studies on climate change, on environment, we conduct them together with the tertiary institutions. And we develop strategies informed by that engagement. Civil society is quite important in such issues, and we are trying our best to mobilize them, including ensuring that they also participate in engaging communities, so that communities will not only listen to government. There is that thinking or mentality where people, when the message comes from government, they will take it as a usual message. And partnering with civil society organs to conduct this community education becomes important.
Premier Zikalala, thank you very much indeed for your time. I wonder if you can just stay with us for a few more minutes. I want to take a quick break. Digital audience, stay with us as well. We just want to conclude this after the quick break. Look, we talk here about the issue of climate change as well. Simple explanation. The earth warms up, ice caps melt, sea levels rise. We are living here in South Africa with a 3,000-kilometer coastline. It's important to talk about these issues because it affects a lot of people. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to keep or pick up with this discussion. An important one indeed. Stay with us. All right, welcome back. You're watching It's Topical. It's a program that puts you, the viewers, at the center of discussion. We still have the Premier Sihle Zikalala from KwaZulu-Natal. We also have our digital audience. We're talking about the devastation in KwaZulu-Natal. Over 400 people have lost their lives. We're getting answers now from the KZN government. Premier, thank you very much indeed for staying with us. I know you're very busy. You've got to go. But just one more question. With regards to the rapid urbanization in cities like, in provinces like KwaZulu-Natal, if it is not accompanied by expanded infrastructure, do you put blame on that issue in terms of leading up to flooding in your area?
No, thanks. The rapid urbanization is a problem in many ways. It undermines spatial planning. It undermines the provision of infrastructure resources if it is so rapid as it happened. And therefore, one will include it on issues that led to this severity. Not that we accuse anyone, because people come from rural areas to look for economic opportunities in urban areas. That's life, we understand that, but we do have to plan for urbanization. It is said that in 2050, Africa will be having more people in urban areas than in rural areas.
Yeah.
So I will agree that we need to plan ahead and ensure that the infrastructure is always ahead of the population that is there.
Premier Zikalala, we thank you very much indeed for coming on and giving us some of the answers. I know it's never enough time to get through everything, but look, you've got a tough task ahead of you. You, together with your team, we wish you nothing but the best to help the people of KwaZulu-Natal. Thank you very much indeed, sir. All right, that was the Premier Sihle Zikalala. They're giving us some answers. We're going to bring back the digital audience in a short while, but we have some of your tweets with regards to our question of the week, and we're asking you, in light of the devastating floods in KwaZulu-Natal, what can South Africa do better in order to prepare for this? Let's take a look at some of your comments. Olani says, after the 2019 disaster, what has the KZN government done to prepare for a disaster of this nature? The next one, Moipoine says, the floods exposed the shambles that called themselves army and police under the ANC. In 1984, the SA Air Force deployed 25 helicopters to airlift people to safety. In the 2000s, Mozambique floods, 17 SAAF helicopters rescued more than 14,000 people. Teji says the day citizens chase away politicians who visit them after a tragedy they could have prevented by just maintaining infrastructure, the day politicians will respect citizens. Do you have time for one more? Mkabai says churches are to have social relief committees to help respond to such crises with the hope that people with the right moral ensure everyone gets help. Aken Ivuke Council and put that as condition for each church to have social response teams. We do appreciate your thoughts at It's Topical SABC. Now, let's further talk about this, and to unpack the issues, we have two guests. I understand the first one is Paul Herbst. He's a rescue worker, and we're also going to bring in the University of Cape Town, Gundu Maswimi, who's also joining us as well. But we've got Paul Herbst here as well. Medi respond. Paul, it's a tough time, I'm sure, for you and the team as well. We heard from the Premier Sihle Zikalala earlier on that we've already lost one of the rescuers. It's a sad time. I know that the rescue fraternity is small and tight, small but with a big heart. Condolences to you and as well as your team members. Talk to us about what's it like being on the ground, sir.
So thank you very much, and appreciate the condolences. And yeah, it was a massive loss to the fraternity today with Sergeant Brucey and Kenan Leah. Look, the guys are working 24/7. They're tired. The canines are tired. But majority of the rescuers live in the communities where the destruction has happened, and they want to help and want to assist.
Yeah.
So they're pushing through. And I think listening to majority of the viewers, they're saying they feel. I'm actually saddened. They say that they feel that the response from government and from organisations was quite slow. I think we got the disaster set quite quickly. And the neighbouring provinces helped us very efficiently so far. And we got quite a few rescuers on the ground, and together with SNDF, Rescue SA, majority other smaller services and NGO organisations. And I was part of the rescue team that went out to Idai. And I think if you look at the two countries, I don't think our government did too bad, I must be honest with you.
Paul was just actually talking about the two SABC members and a canine that perished as a result of the floods. I'm just looking at the statement from the National Commissioner of the South African Police, General Fani Masemula, has learned with sadness about the passing of two members and a canine as a result of the KwaZulu-Natal floods. I was actually referring to the Premier's statement a little earlier on, but it is such a tragedy. What sort of challenges are members, the rescue members, going through in terms of affecting these search and rescue missions?
Okay. It's difficult to say. I mean, any rescue that we're doing or any body recovery we're doing is a high risk thing to do. Yeah. And we try our very best to do it as safe as possible. But, if you look what the Premier is saying, there's been 432 deaths. 63 people outstanding, and we also want to bring closure to the families. Yeah. And our job is high risk, and unfortunately, as we saw today, the challenges we follow, there are some negative impacts on it.
Yeah, the person that you saw popping up on your screen was Gundu Maswime. We're going to talk to him now, infrastructure expert. But Paul, just a last question from me to you with regards to the advice that you can give, Paul, to members of the public watching now dealing with this flood situation in KwaZulu-Natal. What sort of advice would you give them?
Majority of the problems we had was vehicles and people being washed away from low-level bridges and things. If there is water rising and there is a low-level bridge, please don't cross it. And try stay indoors as much as possible, and try to be as safe as possible.
Yeah. Paul Herbst is the Regional Director at Medi Response KZN. Sir, if there's any measure of solace, it's having people like you and those that are putting their lives on the line to save others. You are indeed among the best of us, our angels on the ground, and we thank you very much indeed to you as well as all the other search and rescue workers who are risking everything to save others. Appreciate your time, Paul. All right, there's Paul Herbst there. We are going to take a quick break. Remember, we're talking about what sort of measures can South Africa put in place in order to effect change, better prepare for natural disasters at its Topical SABC. Quick break. We're going to engage with Gundo as well coming up next. He's an infrastructure expert. What sort of links can we draw in terms of infrastructure and what's happening in KwaZulu-Natal? Digital audience still here. Quick break. More news next. What's topical? Definitely the flooding situation in KwaZulu-Natal, devastating. Over 400 people have lost their lives. 63, we told, are missing. Counting the costs. Let's get some answers. Let's bring in infrastructure expert from the University of Cape Town, Gundo Maswime. He joins us now to look at the infrastructure challenges in KwaZulu-Natal. We also have our digital audience. Gundo, thank you very much indeed for coming on. Talk to us about the links between infrastructure issues in a province like KwaZulu-Natal and the flooding situation. You drawing any links there?
Yes. Yes, thank you. And my sympathies to the those that have been affected by the floods. Yes, indeed. The planning of towns involves geohydrologists, geotechnical engineers, and civil engineers, which means civil engineers would have already anticipated after modeling the water patterns what is going to happen when there's a flood, and we can get geohydrological data even from the Weather Bureau on the weather patterns over the last 50 years, sometimes even 100.
Yeah.
So we're able to design based on the worst flood that would have happened in the past 50 years.
I just want to bring in our digital audience to ask maybe some pertinent questions. Let's talk to Leon from Limpopo. Leon is joining us live. Leon, what's the situation there in Limpopo in terms of infrastructure? And are you worried that similar situation can happen where you are?
There you
go.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'd just like to send my condolences to all the families in KwaZulu-Natal and prayers to everyone affected, love and strength. Well, this is definitely a very concerning matter, you know, seeing that it only happened in such a small portion of the country, as someone here said, and still the situation is not under control as it should. It's scary, it's alarming to the whole country. I think it's a huge wake-up call, and it's definitely concerning for everyone, you know, what the other situations that are yet to come, because with global warming we're not really sure what to expect. So it's very alarming, and I think that the government and, you know, shout out to the organizations, they've been doing a great job. I think the government is the one that needs to, you know, be more aware, you know, just you know, it's very concerning. Yeah.
Leon, thank you very much indeed for your comments. Somebody that is probably in the thick of things in Sydenham, Fezekile, joins us now as well. What's happening where you are, Fezekile? If you can just unmute Fezekile. Oh, sorry. Go on.
Yes, in Sydenham there wasn't a big disaster.
Yeah.
Thankfully, our stormwater drainage systems were working perfectly. But the question that I would like to ask is, the rebuilding has already begun. But what has changed? Like what has changed with the rebuilding?
Okay, we'll get that Gundo to answer that question. Spelele Kludla. Where are you joining us from? What's the situation where you are? Mr. Tudla, I think you not unmute. All right, let's come back to you. Musa, you joining us? Are you also joining us from KwaZulu-Natal?
No, I'm currently joining you from Limpopo.
All right, so also the situation in Limpopo. Talk to us about any issues that you worried in terms of infrastructure.
I think the bigger problem is also coming slowly in Limpopo because there is so much rains coming in here. And then I think I would just like to know about the government readiness in other provinces, because it seems like the main focus now is in KwaZulu-Natal.
Right.
So the bigger question will be, what is the government doing to mitigate such problems that might happen in other provinces? Because even here, currently the rains are not stopping, although there might not be much of an effect compared to KwaZulu-Natal, but I think it's something that the government needs to do, or maybe create a crisis center whereby people will be able to run to when there is similar problems.
Musa, thank you very much indeed for your comment. Gundo, let's bring you back into the conversation with regards to decaying infrastructure in cities around South Africa. How does that play a part in terms of the issue of flooding, and also with regards to sanitation and waste management, especially in informal settlements as it relates to blocking of drainage systems, etc. Talk to us about how these are all linked.
Yes, I'll give you a classical example in one informal settlement that we visited during our studies, and we found that the roads that were built are narrower than what is supposed to, what is recommended by the design guidelines. So because the road is narrower, the waste collection truck the garbage truck cannot make it to certain parts of the informal settlement.
Yeah.
And people then have to find any open space to dump. And when they dump in that open space, when it rains, the water gets into the stormwater system, into the storage system, and then the stormwater and the storage come out and start flowing on the surface, corroding the roads that have been built and damaging everything. So sometimes there is a thinking that people in informal settlements are not neat. They don't use dustbins and so on, which most of the time is not the case. There's nobody that likes dirt, but you will find that one design error has triggered a chain reaction. And in some instances, fire truck cannot make it to where the fire is on time, just because the roads that has been designed don't have enough space for these big trucks to maneuver.
Yeah.
So there's a very strong connection between all of that. And I think we should, the issue of calling settlements informal, when we informalize them, then even the services we take there, the infrastructure we give them becomes informal, unfortunately.
There's so many aspects to this, Gundo. We thank you very much indeed for your perspective. Let's get a few more comments from a digital audience. Velekazi joins us now. Velekazi, what's your comment with regards to the issue? Velekazi, are you with us? Nope, not with us. Let's go to Mr. Dlutla. Talk to us about your comments on what can we do better in order to prepare, sir.
Good evening, Blain. Good evening to the audience at home and my colleagues on the meeting. I'm joining you from Johannesburg, but my home is in eThekwini, Ward 9, Emolweni, one of the worst hit communities. In fact, one of the houses in my home has completely been destroyed. And we're going through this cycle for the second time because in 2018, we also were hit by a tornado that flattened our house.
Yeah.
I think I heard the Premier speaking, saying that the government is prepared and doing everything it can. But it leaves much to be desired to see an M4 highway near Umlazi and N2 near industrial area in Prospecting being flooded. And you question how do we have such disasters where places should be having prepared stormwater drainage systems? And I think the government needs to do more in terms of planning. And I'm happy that Professor from UCT was here to explain that some communities don't have access to stormwater drainage systems. Right. And I wish the government could do more in terms of planning and preparing to ensure that our communities do not have such a disaster any further.
We do appreciate your comments. Time is never on our side, but we will get to Tselo live from Abu Dhabi as well. Tselo Mokoena is there. Dr. Sibusiso Nxumalo as well. We do apologize that we didn't get to you on the live show, but we will record your comments and post it on our socials as well. We need your comments as well. So thank you very much indeed for your time on the program. Look, it's been a packed program and you're dealing with a number of issues. Let me give you my take. The impact of climate change, droughts, melting of the ice, rising seas, severe storms, floods, fires. It seems like it's becoming more and more intense and unpredictable. But there are other factors that can lead to devastation. The importance of expanding infrastructure to make it suitable for the current population has been underscored here tonight. You heard it from our guests. If not maintained, communities will remain vulnerable to the elements such as flooding. So many lives have been lost. So many people are grieving tonight. You are in our thoughts and prayers. And death can't be abstract, isn't it? We have to resist the urge of becoming numb to the sorrow every time a disaster claims lives. We need to use this pain as a driver to become better. For many, Easter is a time of renewal. It's a time of rebirth. It's a time of hope. Now more than ever, maybe it's a time to put purpose to the current pain that is being felt in KwaZulu-Natal and other parts of the country and renew our efforts of finding sustainable solutions to this problem. And that's my point of view. The news continues. The Globe is up next. Until next week, take care. Bye-bye.